Nearly 2 months ago now, I had the beautiful and attractive folks from the Elementary OS project on the show to talk about a fundraising campaign they were doing to build a app store, an app center for their platform, and how they were going to raise some funds to get everyone together in one place at one time to have kind of a little week-long hackathon for that. And they did it. They pulled off their fundraiser. They had their hackathon, or whatever they want to call it. And I have them back on the show. Daniel Fore, the big dog, the Chief Chihuahua of the Elementary Project. I don't know if he wants to be called the Chief Chihuahua. I didn't ask him that beforehand, but that's what we're calling him from now on. Daniel, that is your official title with the Elementary OS project, Chief Chihuahua. I realize that might actually come across as racist. I just now realized that might be racist. I want to be clear to the internet that I did not intend for that to be racist. It's just that Chief and Chihuahua start with the same sound, and I love things that rhyme. But before we talk to Daniel about the Elementary project and all the good stuff that was going on there, I want to talk about hardware for a second. Specifically, let's talk about this Meerkat from System 76. This is a little tiny guy. I got to play around with one of these guys in person, and it's just this little tiny form factor, beautiful little machine. I have it spec'd out here with just the default base, installed with Ubuntu by default, 2.3 gigahertz i3, 4 gigs of DDR3 RAM, 32 gigabyte SSD. Very simple machine, very nice, very small, very cute as a button. $4.99 at system76.com. But what if you want something that is just a teensy bit larger than this? Over at pogolinux.com, you can pick up this Twin 1U Iris server that is spec'd out in this configuration. I pretty much maxed out this config because I could. With 88 Xeon cores between two independent servers running in a single 1U chassis with, let's see, what did I spec it out with here? We got each server has 1 terabyte of DDR4 RAM. Each one has a hard drive that has 1.6 terabytes. It's an Intel SSD. Now it's got 3 other hot swappable drive bays that you can put other drives in. We've got one side running OpenSUSE Linux 64-bit and the other side, just for good measure, is running Debian 8 Jessie, because why wouldn't you do that? Now, if you want the Meerkat, you go over to system76.com. If you want the Twin 1U server, you go over to pogolinux.com. Obviously, both companies sell a lot of other stuff as well. Those are just the ones I wanted to focus on today because I think they're both completely rad. And if you do buy either one, or any other machines that either of them sells, make sure you let them know that Lunduke sent you, because otherwise they might not help support this show anymore. And we would not want that now, would we? So make sure, even if you're buying something from them despite my horribleness, still tell them Lunduke sent you. Tell them it anyway. I think that's the good way to go. All right. Now, we need to bring on Daniel Fore. Daniel, let's see here. Are you there, Daniel? Daniel.
I'm here.
Daniel, are you there?
I'm here.
Daniel, nice to see you again, my friend.
How's it going, man?
I need to apologize. One, for the Chihuahua remark.
That was hilarious.
I should apologize for that. And second, the E at the end of your name should have the little accent mark on it. But I put it into open broadcasting software here, and it just displayed a little square. And I'm sorry, your name is not Daniel Fore. It is Fore, correct?
It is correct.
Yeah,
that's okay. You know, internationalization is a thing.
It's not my fault, man. It might be my fault, but that's what happened. Anyway, thank you for coming on the show again, dude. So how did it go? So first of all, you did the fundraiser. How did the fundraising campaign for this go? What was the final result of that?
The fundraiser went awesome, actually, and we ended up raising. We're almost 130% of our goal. And so we raised a little over $10,000 to put it on.
Nicely done, man. Nicely done. And how did that work out? Where did you go? What did you do? Who did you bring out there? And how many tacos did you eat? I just said something else that might again be race. I feel like I'm on like a thing here. As I am not saying tacos. Continue. I'm just going to stop talking. I love tacos too. That's why I brought it up. If I'm having a hackathon, I want tacos. I go hit Taco Bell because it's cheap and it's friggin' delicious and it's mystery meat. Those are the 3 things I require in life, and that's why I mentioned tacos.
Well, we didn't eat any tacos. I don't think actually. You know, I'm not sure Denver is a huge like taco scene. I didn't there. I did see one taco cart, but we didn't happen to go.
Well,
But yeah, so as far as tacos go,
okay, we'll put tacos off to the side for a moment. So you there. You went to the System 76 office in Denver, Colorado, right?
that's correct.
Which
Yeah,
is great.
Carl let us crash their office, which was very cool of him.
Awesome. Love that. And it was let's see, you and a couple of the other folks that are building software and working on the elementary project.
Yeah, there was a total of 8 of us, including desktop web developers and designers.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
way awesome. So how did it go? To start with, what did you guys actually accomplish, or did you just end up playing Nintendo games the whole time?
No, it was super awesome. We got a ton done. So our goal for the end of the sprint was to be able to have a full pipeline where you get an application, you can publish it, and then pay for it at the end. And that's fully possible now. That's something that is working.
Really? It's
Yeah,
working. Like
it is working.
I mean, because that's kind of a critical thing. It actually is
Yeah,
working.
yeah. So that's totally done. We have code in App Center now to show banners on the homepage that show like the newest apps, and they're stylized with brand colors and stuff like that. And we did some clever stuff with custom keys in the AppStream metadata, so it's really easy for developers to set that up. They don't have to upload like custom images or anything to be able to do that. And
Nice.
yeah, so we've got some basic APIs set up now on our dashboard side to be able to send that kind of data about which apps are newest and some basic download stats and things like that. That's all server side. So we're starting to get more dynamic information into App Center on the homepage. And then on the actual app listing views, we have a lot more information there. Again, we have the branded colors that are present now. We added a bunch of stuff for links that people can add, like the links to their homepage or their bug tracker or where to submit translations and things like that. So there's a lot more information that developers can put on their pages now.
Awesome.
So yeah, so we got a lot done, all the way from from our server side stuff to discovery things to things that developers can put into it, and I'm really happy with all the work that we accomplished.
That's
It was
rad.
good.
That's really rad, dude. Well done. Now, where you're at right now, how long do you think it'll be at your current rate of progress post that totally awesome in-person sprint that you guys did until you feel like it's really going to roll out to the broader populace?
Well, momentum's really high right now. Still, we're still like submitting a lot of stuff. And right now, we currently have like a private beta running with some of our Indiegogo backers. And so we have our first 2 apps that are published, and then we have a bunch of and then we have a bunch of apps that are like in progress. The system's working as it's supposed to with our automated reviews. So there's the dashboard has been sending GitHub issues to developers about validating their metadata and stuff like that. So the system's working. And so we're just getting developers through the process and helping them with any issues that they run into and just kind of tracking down any bugs that they might find and make sure that it's running smoothly. So we really want to spend time with our private beta testers to make sure that when we roll it out to everyone, that they won't run into like big, day zero horrible issues, especially when we're dealing with payments. We want to make sure that's like super rock solid.
Right.
So,
Yeah, you kind of don't want to screw any of that stuff up. It's kind of critical. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, we'll probably end up spending like another month or so in private beta just to make sure that everything's good to go. But the core features is what we want to push out first. And then, we can continue to roll out new features as the product's in production.
Right. So you're thinking in a month or so, you might actually be like more public beta or something like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think
it's not bad.
Probably what we'll do is we'll push out an update to the actual App Center client itself, and it'll be kind of like asleep basically. And then, as a tester, you can add the repository, and then once it detects you have the repository, it'll pull in all the information. And that's kind of how we have it working right now, is that things fall back if that repository isn't available. So we'll probably do that just so that we can get some of the core features out there and like testable for people to start playing with. And then our plan is to eventually roll out a new ISO of Loki as a point release that has this repository pre-installed,
Nice.
and then all the updates that we've done.
Nice, man. Really, really nice. That's fantastic. So, yeah, I've got questions to ask you, but first, I feel like we should throw some questions over to the community. I put a thing up on Twitter and I said, hey, everybody, what questions do you want to ask? The head, let's go poodle this time, the head poodle of the Elementary Project. And I asked them on Twitter and I said bonus points for rhyming, and a bunch of people actually put it in to rhyme, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So would you mind kind of indulging me here with a few of these questions?
Yeah, let's get our rhyme on.
So at
bonus points if you rap them instead of rhyming them.
Right? Sorry, I'm just going to read this as if I were a hoity-toity guy reading a poem.
Oh, okay.
At Shiken over on Twitter says, tigers on the lawn, shrimp is not prawn, cardinals in a tree, duck family of 3. Any plans for a performance overhaul of Pantheon? That was a little bit forced, I'm not going to lie, but I still liked it just the same. So what do you think? So Pantheon, honestly, in my experience, has actually been pretty good performance-wise, especially when compared to some desktop environments. But any current plans to make it more performant?
Well, I actually replied to this guy on Twitter, and I think I said something like, you can't go faster than instantaneous. I mean, that's... Every review that you see of Elementary OS, especially on YouTube and stuff, is people are like, wow, the app's open instantly.
They do.
Like, everything is, you know.
Yeah, Pantheon is pretty snappy. It's pretty performant. I have a small laptop, a little Intel Atom with 4 gigs of RAM that I use for a lot of my OS testing, and I have every version of Elementary I've slapped onto there, and honestly, the latest version, yeah, it's pretty peppy. You click on an item, boom, it pops open. I mean, it's not like it stutters really all that much. So I agree. I don't know that it needs to be a thing you guys focus on. Cubicle Nate asks, and Cubicle Nate asks a question that I wanted to ask anyway. So let's go with this. I'm puzzled why OpenSUSE isn't the base. Wouldn't the build service tools with OpenQA help your case? That's a good point, Cubicle Nate. Daniel, what say you about that? Wouldn't that help to have the amazing power of the OpenSUSE build service and the OpenQA automation system to help build your system?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are, you know, why don't you switch as a base to my favorite distro? And I get it. I understand, like, you know,
yeah, you
love your distro. You chose your distro for specific reasons, right? And,
right?
And you were like, well, I also would like to run all this stuff on top of it. But that's why we've been trying to work with these communities to get Pantheon ported over onto more distros, so that you can, if you want to use our desktop, you can use it on your favorite distro. And like, as far as us moving our base, like, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. It would be a lot of work.
It would be a ton of work. It would be a huge amount of work from where you guys are at right now. I ask, and I think I've asked you guys at least a dozen times that exact same question now. And I'm probably going to ask a dozen more, but realistically, in my heart, I know the right answer is you guys should just keep building what you're currently building. but have like an exit strategy. You know what I mean? Like I love seeing, like, in the open build service, you can get Pantheon up and running on OpenSUSE. There's an Arch AUR for Pantheon going on right now, and having those around there means that should Ubuntu go some crazy direction, like should they decide to, you know, make their own package manager or something crazy like that, you can just boop jump on over to something else. And I say boop jump on over as if it's super easy, but at least it's, you know, part of the work's already done, so you have like a life raft available to you. So that's something, right? That's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah. You never know. You never know what the future holds. I guess right now, as far as that stuff, you know, we're just trying to work with people to get our software on other repositories. So if you're interested in that work, you know, elementary.io/get-involved.
At Gumnose, Tim Chase over on Twitter asks, as one who runs BSD or Ubuntu or Debian and finds that they run true, why Elementary OS? It's anyone's guess. Is there something it does that they don't do? That was, I got to give him props. He put that in limerick form. He had to break it out into 2 different tweets there, but he actually asked you a question in limerick form. So what say you? What's the compelling thing about Elementary OS that you're not going to get from one of the BSDs or from Ubuntu?
I think the answer to that question is the same as what are you going to get from a Nest thermostat that you're not going to get from a Honeywell thermostat. Technically, they both have the same.
Stop.
All right.
You might be just about to answer this, but I don't have a Honeywell or a Nest thermostat. I legitimately have no idea what you're not going to get or going to get from either one. So you're going to have to explain this analogy to me straight up.
Yeah. No, it's the question isn't like about features. Like both of these products technically have the same features. But one of these products is really nice to use. It's understandable. It's pleasant. It's easy.
Are you saying straight up that Ubuntu and BSD are not nice to use, pleasant, or easy? Just to be clear.
I mean, you know.
Oh, he's hesitating. He's
but...
waffling. Okay. All right. So it's usability then. It's nice. It's pleasantness. It's good lookingness.
Well, the difference is not necessarily just what it does, but how it does it. And if how Ubuntu does things is how your mind works, then, you know, obviously you're going to love that product more. But, you know, for what we do, you know, as an operating system, generally you're going to have the same, you know, it launches applications and it goes on your computer. But how things are done is going to be different, and how you experience it is going to be different. So you kind of got to try it for yourself and see how it feels. And if it works the way your mind works, then you might have a better time.
Honestly, I mean, yes. I'll leave it at that because I think some of these further questions, we'll get into this further. At Gumnose, Tim Chase has got some other great ones here. Pardon me. While Elementary OS, it does look fine. Would it suit those of us preferring command line? And for mouse users, one might find that it strikes a chord. But what about those of us who prefer the keyboard?
Yeah,
what say
definitely.
You to that?
As far as terminal users, people love our terminal. Especially, I see people all the time that are coming from other platforms talking about the features that are baked into our terminal, as far as like backlog search and notifications and smart copy paste and things like that.
Yeah, it is a really nice terminal. I mean, I live in my terminal like 80% of the time. 80% of my day is a terminal that's just super big, and I just do most of my stuff inside of it. And yeah, Elementary's terminal is a really excellent one. Like, it's one of the nicer looking ones, and it also just is, it has a lot of nice features. It's excellent. You guys have done a good job with that.
We're developers ourselves, so you know, we got to live in it, and we got to use these tools. So you know, we do our best to try to make them good, because these are the tools that we use too.
How about in terms of general keyboardiness throughout the operating system? Like, how much of a priority is it for you to be able to just sit down and use all of Pantheon, your desktop environment, without touching a mouse? Is that a priority for you? Is that something that you guys worry about?
Yeah, what a lot of people I think miss about keyboard stuff is that it's not just important to people who are developers that are really into you know, using the system from that standpoint, but using a keyboard to drive navigation is actually really important for users that have like limited motor ability and things like that. Yeah. So there's like a lot of different personas, I guess, that benefit from having a keyboard driven experience. So that's a lot of issues that I file in my regular use. And when I'm doing like QA testing, is I look for to make sure that keyboard stuff works. We've actually put some work into our style sheet to make sure that focus states appear different between mouse focus and keyboard focus and things like that. So definitely paying attention to our keyboard users is something we care about.
Good answer, my friend. At Emansum over on Twitter asks, when will Elementary rebase on something more up-to-date, rolling release, like Arch? And if you don't feel like answering this, you don't have to, because Emansum did not rhyme. That is not a poem, and I am offended at that. It's a good question, but you have the option of opting out because of the lack of rhyming.
So my kind of answer to that one is that at the moment, we almost do like a semi-rolling thing right now, where we have a stable base, but we continually release updates for all of our own applications. And now that we have App Center going on, we're hoping that developers will continually push updates to their applications. So effectively, like everything that you interact with regularly should be rolling. You should get updates throughout the life cycle of the product. And the only thing that remains stable is the underlying libraries and base and things like that. And then, that gives our developers a stable API to target, so they know that, if they're targeting this version of the operating system, that they can target these libraries and things like that.
Okay. But I mean, Elementary is not really a rolling release. You know what I mean? Like, it's not... You have actual releases, so I mean it's kind of hard to compare it to like an Arch or an OpenSUSE Tumbleweed or something like that, because you actually have releases. You have flag in the ground releases, and then you have updates based on that, and then you have another flag in the ground release. So I guess if someone really wants a rolling release, looking at Elementary is probably not the right place to go for them, right? Because they want something that's just updated with the bleeding edge every 7 to 9 days,
Yeah. If what you care about is having the latest libraries available to you, and you're not trying to target our base, then you could totally run Pantheon on Arch, or I think there's even a Gentoo portage overlay or whatever it's called.
Whoa! Let's not go crazy here. Don't go over to Gentoo. That's talking crazy bananas now. Arch or Tumbleweed, sure. Gentoo, I don't think so. I don't even know how to say this. Pierre Valatin over on Twitter asks, sorry for this easy one, but I'm still wondering why the File Explorer isn't in the dock by default. And congrats for the App Center. So what say you? Why is the File Explorer not in the dock by default? That's preposterous, my friend.
So this is actually, this is kind of more of a psychological design decision than like a pure technical decision. And the idea behind it is that we want to encourage the access of the file system through applications first and the file browser second. Like Photos is always going to be a better way to manage and view and explore your Photos library than the file browser. And music's always going to be a better way to manage and explore
the file browser.
Right.
So okay, that's pretty straightforward.
So yeah, we know that we can build better, like custom tailored experiences for different types of media in these various applications. And Files is going to be like the least common denominator case. And so this is for us more of like a developer tool.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, you kind of steering people away from the file browser and more towards customized applications for dealing with different types of data and files.
Right.
Okay, fair. There's another question asking when the EOS core is moving to Fedora. We'll just skip that one because we pretty much answered that. At Micah Ivory asks, do they plan on updating the dev docs to match the new App Center workflow with the public beta stable, or is that a low priority?
Yeah, I actually pushed out an update either yesterday or the day before to switch our docs from referencing Launchpad and Bazaar to now they reference GitHub and Git. And then I have a branch outstanding right now to add some documentation about app data XML files. And then I think the plan is to save any specific documentation about publishing until we have App Center in an open beta. Okay, we don't want to have that documentation and send people there and be like, I can't actually use this.
This doesn't actually apply to anyone outside of this limited set right now. Yeah,
right.
That kind of makes sense. And then someone asks here about the ability to update to the next version of the OS without doing a fresh install, and they point out that according to them, that is the biggest issue of Elementary OS. And I kind of understand that the ability to upgrade from one version to the next without a fresh install is kind of a big deal. Do you guys have a plan to do that? Is that low priority? What's the deal with that? What's going on?
Yeah, as far as I understand it, because this isn't actually something that I personally worked on, but as far as I understand it, the big blocker for this is that for previous releases, we had used all of Ubuntu's update tools. Mm-hmm. And this is the first release where we actually have our own update tools. Really? So, yeah, because we're doing all our updates through App Center now.
Oh.
So, theoretically, this is the first release where it's actually possible for us to do this, because the Ubuntu tools, I guess when you tried to upgrade, they would remove our repositories. So
it's a minor thing. Yeah.
Yeah, just a little problem.
Yeah. So it would upgrade
yeah,
basically elementary into Ubuntu.
yeah.
Yeah,
It would attempt to, and then
it
weird
probably would explode.
Frankenstein like
Yeah.
goo, like that scene from Alien.
Which scene specifically? I'm thinking of
Or was
multiple
it?
scenes right now. I mean, are we going some guy spewing out of a guy's stomach scene, or what are we
No,
doing
I think it
here?
was it in Resurrection where she stumbles into the lab with all the experiments?
Oh yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
now I'm with you. No. We got to be clear about which goo-filled sci-fi scene we're talking about. All right, that makes sense. Do you guys think you'll be at a point by the time the next major version of elementary ships where you'll be able to do that, or where you actually will do that, or is it just kind of like now it's possible, and so it's at least something that's on the possible to do board?
I really hope so. It's high priority and it has bounty money attached to it. But
That's
there's
good.
there's been no demonstrable success with it yet because we have no base to try to upgrade to yet.
So you don't know.
So
So
yeah, I
that is a
honestly
little
I don't.
scary because it would be the first time you'll have done that. And
Yeah.
it doesn't really apply to me personally because I like what you guys are doing. I love the project and I love installing it, but because I do a lot of work on other distros, I've never had elementary OS on the same machine long enough to do an upgrade from one distro release to the next. So I always am doing clean installs. So it doesn't actually impact me in the slightest.
Yeah.
But I totally get why you'd want that. So I think it's a good idea. At least two different people have asked me about Vala related questions. So you guys do most of your in-house development in Vala, right?
Hmm.
No, you don't hear that a lot. I mean, that's a programming language that, I mean, honestly, most distros kind of ignore. A lot of distros are either C, C++, or Python. It seems to be kind of the end-all be-all of Linux distribution development. Why Vala? And do you have any opinions on the current state of Vala? What's your Vala thoughts? I don't have anyone else to ask about Vala except for elementary people, really. So
Sure.
lay it on me, man.
Yeah, I mean, we love Vala. The original kind of reason that we decided to go Vala is that we were having a lot of performance problems with Python, and we were looking at C sharp as being really nice, but still having a lot of the same performance problems at the time. Mono was like really bad with memory and stuff like that. And we heard, I believe we heard about Yorba was using Vala, and so we started
Yeah.
checking it out. And we saw that Vala was like really awesome syntactically. It's like this super nice language to write in, and the performance is excellent because it just compiles into C, and so it's native code, and it's purpose built for a G object. So everything just makes sense natively with GTK. There's not boilerplate to use GTK in it. So
Yeah.
for our purposes, like Vala was like the language. It had everything that we needed and everything we wanted and everything that we had problems with other languages.
It does seem pretty nice. I mean, I've never actually coded a project in Vala, but I don't have any issues with it. I'm just always amazed that the only time I hear about Vala is when I'm hearing about elementary OS related stuff. That's the only time I hear about Vala. And I think that's kind of cool in a way. You know what I mean? It's like you guys are like the flagship Vala project, really.
Yeah, it's kind of I kind of like the idea of it. It kind of goes with our branding and stuff, and the idea of presenting kind of a one true development path, and for people to be able to know that, oh, when I code an application for elementary OS, I could just use Vala. Like they don't have to think about like what the platform is. They just know what it is already.
The phrase, the one true development path. I mean, that almost has like a spiritual connotation. Like it is the way. This is the light and the end all be all. This is the path. I kind of dig that. There's something profound about it and intense. What's the plan about third-party app installation, specifically apps like Chrome or Steam? Someone at Alonso Zamorano, great name. I don't know if that's your real name or your made-up name, but it's rad. I love the way Solus Project handled this, and I really think Elementary needs this to be really a terminal-free distro. The idea of a terminal-free Linux distribution absolutely makes my head explode and get all angry pants. But I see what he's saying. Thoughts around installation of third-party applications that come from outside sources?
Yeah, so the big Now, if I understand how Solus does it, and I've only played with it like a couple times, so I might have this wrong, but if I think I understand how it works, they do a thing where they actually show the apps in their store, and what it does is it's a dummy package that like manually downloads it from their website or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so the big thing for us is like we're not lawyers and we don't know if that's legit. Like
you don't want to run afoul of the legal departments.
Yeah, especially like being a U.S. company, we don't want to like blatantly infringe upon somebody's like redistribution terms.
Sure.
You know, that's in the same country as us. So
that's a fair answer. Yeah, you don't want to do something that's going to get you sued, basically. Yeah.
Basically, like unless some other company with a lot of legal power, like Red Hat, because they're also here, was like, oh yeah, this is totally kosher, then we could be like, oh, Red Hat checked it out, so you know, we'll trust them. But
right, you have to be able to point to someone else first.
Yeah, we got to have a precedent on that one. We don't want to be the first ones to get sued into oblivion by Google and all those guys.
Right. This is the exact same reason that I didn't name this show The Beatles. It's really pretty much the same thing. At Pivalentin over on Twitter asks, and finally, have you thought of implementing the same gestures found in macOS with the trackpad?
We'd love to have more gesture stuff. The big blockers on this one, and I believe there was a blog post from somebody at GNOME earlier today talking about the same thing, was that we need the input stack to be good and understand gestures. So, you know, as far as I understand it, like X, you know, obviously had no concept of touch because it was, you know, conceived at the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And
it was like the 1700s or something like that. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy. So now that we have like lib input that's built from the ground up to understand like multi-point, input, then that's possible on like a driver level. And then the toolkit had to also get gesture support baked into it. And so now the newer versions of GTK have that support baked in. So gestures are coming. They're coming across the stack. I believe that there is some more stuff that's kind of blocked by X in general that we might not get until Wayland, but I can't remember exactly which features are possible or not. But it's a stack issue, and so once we get the stack in line, then we'll have it for sure.
Yeah, this is another one of those features that sounds neat, but I just don't ever use. Like even when there's like the option for like, you know, scrolling with 2 fingers, scrolling whatever on the touchpad, I disable all that when I can. I'm an old fuddy-duddy. As it is, there's too many options for input. I like my keyboard and I like my mouse, but I like my mouse to be optional and sitting off to the side, and I like to grab it only when I need to do something that isn't even physically possible via a keyboard. It's my old manny ways.
The way I look at it is gestures are lazy keyboard shortcuts.
Huh. All right.
It's like, if I do a keyboard shortcut, I gotta like figure out where the keys are, and like if I could just do a thing like this, and you know, I just however many fingers this way, and then stuff happens, you know.
However many fingers this way. Yeah, see, that's where I start to get lost, because I don't think I can functionally do that. My brain can wrap around Alt-D. Like, I can get that. I can totally get that. As soon as I have, like, 3 fingers swiping from the right to the left on the touchpad, I'm like, crap. Like, it's horrible. So when I must have been a teenager at this point, but I was setting up a computer for my mom. And my mom, you know, like many mothers of Gen X children, was a baby boomer. And baby boomers are not well known for being super proficient with computers, right? So I sat down and I told her, I'm like, okay, now right click on this icon on your desktop. And she just kind of was like, what's a right click? And I'm like, click on the right mouse button. And she's like, on the right hand side? And I'm like, yeah, look down at your mouse. There's 2 buttons, a left one and a right one. Click on the right one. She's like, well, I don't know what that means. I'm like, I just told you what that means, woman. It's the simplest concept in the human world. Click on the right mouse button. I got into a fight with my mother over the concept of right click. And I made so much fun of her. And then I'd go hang out with my friends. I'm like, can you believe that? And my friends had similar stories about their parents having just horrible problems with these obvious concepts. And now here I am, 20 some odd years later, and I'm like, 3 fingers scroll on the what's a what, on the gestures what's a what, and I feel like I'm retarded now. And I understand the concepts, and I understand why it should be easy for me, but for some reason my brain is firmly set in like the terminals of the 1980s. It's like keyboards, terminals, buttons. I understand buttons, and that's just how my brain works at this point. I don't know what it is. Cubicle Nate asked another good question, and I think this one is a good pertinent question. You gave the world another store. How will you keep this from being a bore? And that's a good question. Linspire created the Click and Run store. It sucked. It's dead now. Ubuntu created the Ubuntu Software Center. It's dead now pretty much too. They killed that sucker off because it was garbage. What on this earth is going to make the Elementary OS App Center not garbage? What is going to make it stick around and actually be relevant 5 years from now?
Well, the biggest difference between App Center and I think any other store available right now is our pay what you want model. And I think that's like the kind of new interesting thing, right? And so we're excited to get that out there because we've been using Pay What You Want to fund the development of Elementary OS itself, but we want to give that to developers as well. So we want to change the way that open source developers think about monetization, and we want to change the way that open source users think about it and make sure that we have a path for people to be able to get open source applications at prices they can afford without building up paywalls, without URM or anything like that. We want to like try to build a healthy community around monetization. And that's like really, I think, different and scary and difficult, but really exciting also.
I totally agree, by the way. That was the correct answer. Any other answer you were going to come up with was going to be absolutely wrong, and I was going to tell you you're wrong and tell you that, because that is a huge thing. I mean, it's so big. Monetization of not just, proprietary stuff, but free and open source software is tricky, and you want to be able to give funds to the developers that are making things, but it's so much not what we're used to. But being able to go into a store and say, okay, I want to grab LibreOffice or whatever's in there, and I want to donate $1 to them, it feels natural, feels right somehow. Like it feels like, yes, this is an extension of what I'm used to wanting to do. It's just an easier way to give them a little bit of money. It's almost like walking by a busker playing, like a one-man band where he's got the cymbals and the tambourine and a harmonica and an accordion all going at the same time, and you toss $1 into his cup. This is kind of the same thing. You can just toss $1 in, toss $10 in, whatever it is it's worth to you, and it's just casual and relaxed and okay. Whereas if you go in there and it's $29.95, it feels corporate-y and stiff-shirted, and you're less likely to want to do it. So I think that was a really smart move on your guys' part. That makes a ton of sense to me. I have to ask this one mostly because it was a great rhyme. Cubicle Nate threw this one over, and I thought this was fantastic. A notable improvement of Loki is the install isn't pokey. What was the movement that made the improvement? So I think pretty much what he's asking is what made it, what caused you guys to get the installation of Loki to be less pokey?
Yeah, I actually tweeted at him because I wasn't sure what he was asking, and I thought if Brian brings that up, I have to know what this question even is.
And I was going to, even if I didn't understand it, because I liked the rhyme.
Yeah. So I tweeted at him, and I believe he said that he wanted to know about application installation and why that's faster now. Yeah. And the big change there is we switched from the Ubuntu Software Center over to our App Center app. And so instead of, I believe theirs was like a Python app using, I don't know what backend. It was something that, because, certain technologies didn't exist yet kind of thing. Yeah. So it was, kind of ancient, and they abandoned it because it was bad.
It was real bad.
Yeah,
It was just the worst.
right.
I don't think I could. I'm actually kind of sad that the Ubuntu App Center is gone because I really liked making fun of it. It was really fun and easy to make fun of because I think it's universally hated by pretty much everyone because of how slow it was. It did some things right and it had some user interface things that were actually pretty good, but it was just so slow that even installing a single package took for friggin' ever. So so moving away from that made a lot of sense on your guys' side.
Yeah, and that was one of the primary things that we talked about when we started building App Center is we said, how do we get people to use this app instead of using the terminal? Because the terminal's really fast. And so this app needs to be at least as fast and easy to use as terminal. Otherwise, people just pop in the terminal and then they won't go through the whole, pay what you want dance. So in order to get people supporting creators, we need to make sure that the app is really responsive. So that was our thing there.
Nailed it. I'm glad you have a focus on that. So often developers don't have that focus on performance, and that drives me crazy. Have you ever used, I mean, of course you've used old machines. You go back even 20 some odd years to old UIs and old GUIs running in the late 80s, early 90s. And you realized how snappy some of that software was running on 386 and 486 processors with 1 megabyte of RAM. And it was just old stuff. And yeah, it had less resolution. And yeah, no 3D rendering. And yeah, it didn't have a lot of the cool features we have nowadays. And half the time it couldn't even multitask. But it was so fast. And now here we are with machines that are a billion times faster. And then you'd load up an app installer that just takes 4 minutes to initialize. It blows my mind that that's even possible. And then you guys come along and you're one of the developers out there that seems to be doing it right, where you're actually focusing on getting the performance in there and getting the efficiency in there. And I thank you for doing that, by the way, if for no other reason than it puts the pressure on everyone else to actually up their game and write software that doesn't take so long to friggin' load. So yeah, just a little high five. Right on. Last question from the Twitterverse. And this is from at Ornum. If you were in charge, a grand poobah, if you will, of GTK4, what would you do and how smooth and shiny would GTK be?
I'd probably hand it back to whoever's in charge right now because they're doing a great job.
They are, aren't they? Yeah.
They're killing
it. They are. I am absolutely blown away. Honestly, the whole GNOME team, top to bottom, is doing some pretty awesome work right now. I really like what's going on with GTK, and I really like what's going on with GNOME. I think if I were to pick right now, I mean, Elementary's Pantheon environment is slick looking. You guys have done a really killer job of making a really nice looking desktop. But if there's one that I feel like is coming at you guys and also looking really quite slick, it'd be what the GNOME team is doing. They're just doing great work. And a lot of that is thanks to how good GTK is looking lately. It's just looking good.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of awesome features coming into GTK. I've been reading some of the blogs, and they're talking about the architectural changes to it and the way that we're going to be able to handle widgets better in the future, and the way that the CSS applies differently now because widgets are now following the box model correctly. So you're able to do really stylistically interesting things. Yeah, and they're working on Vulkan rendering and all these really fast hardware accelerated backends. So you could do animations on every level. They're getting really into insane performance optimizations, but also just making it really cool.
Good. Yeah, so good. I mean, and they're hitting it. Yeah, like you said, from multiple angles, they're making it even better, and that's just awesome. All right, now my turn. So you guys did, and let's kind of back up and look at business of open sourcey stuff for just a second. Because you did a crowdfunding campaign to get a group of people together to start kind of just basically to have a hackathon, right? Mm-hmm. To really just get into it and make as much progress as you could on your App Center. Based on your experience with doing this, is that something that you're going to try and repeat in the future? Is that a repeatable thing, you think, for future projects, for future surges and sprints for focusing on new features? Did that work out for you guys?
Yeah, I think it was super successful. I think that all of our fans and customers and everybody, just people who were involved in the open source community in general, like really supported the idea, and they saw what we were trying to do, and they helped us like totally blow past our goal, which was awesome.
That was cool.
So I think that they saw the value in the idea. We definitely felt the value of it, being able to get together in person. And, especially there was a moment where we were in the System 76 office, and it was me and Cassidy in the whiteboard room, and we were just going at it, wireframing, all over the place. And I just kind of stood back for a second and was like, this is awesome. Like you would never be able to get this much design work done in a single day any other time.
Yeah.
Like this, because just the ability for us to be able to point at stuff and draw it and like use our hands to mimic animations, and it was super productive. It was super, super productive. So I was very happy with the sprint, and I'd love to do another one.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Like, we've gotten so used to touting the benefits of having a distributed online working from home workforce, and we're used to having like people, and you're in California, right? Mm-hmm. So you're in California, and you've got a guy working over in Colorado, and you probably got people all over the world and over the USA, and it's amazing to be able to do that. But there's something awesome about getting a bunch of nerds together in a single room with whiteboards and their own laptops and just pounding away and ordering some pizza and going nuts on it. You just can't beat that for getting some like that, the creative juices and just getting it flowing. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's great, especially like we had talked about the idea of kind of like your cognitive bandwidth almost, where you have this increased throughput of communication and thinking between people, and you could point at someone's screen and you could just yell across the room and ask someone a question. Like, information flows so much faster. I mean, it's hard because you want to encourage more companies to allow people to have virtual offices and work from home and everything else. But there's kind of a good point about having everyone in the same office. Like, it is actually more productive, and at least for certain things, like for doing those brainstorming sessions, nothing beats that. And then, everyone has to go to their own cubby holes and code for 8 weeks straight. But for those sessions, those brainstorming moments, you got to get people together. It is just unstoppable. Kudos. I'm glad you guys did it. High five to the System 76 guys for hosting it, because that was cool. And not just because they're one of the two sponsors of this show, but because, that's a cool thing to do. So where do you go from here? So you've got sometime in the next month, 2 months, whatever it is, you kind of make the public release of the App Center, whether it's beta or final or however you guys want to end up describing it or versioning it or whatever. Where do you go after that? I mean, because at that point, it's a pretty big new feature. I mean, that's a big release. Most operating systems would consider that a release that goes out with a major version. You know what I mean? Like, that would be a big deal. If you guys were Apple, that would constitute 90% of the new features for a new OS version, right? So what do you guys do from here? You've got Loki out, but what comes next? And what are those big features going to look like if the App Center is already rolling out to current people? Yeah, well, like we were talking about before, the way that we do releases is we base it on when we need new libraries.
Yeah.
And so in order to build App Center, we didn't need to upgrade our base at all. We built it on our current base. And there's a lot of features and things we can still do on our current base. The software isn't by any means like crusty. It all works great.
It's not crusty. I don't mean to imply that Elementary OS has grown stale and crusty. Yeah.
So our focus right now is on continuing to improve this release, because we're still pushing out new features. We're still pushing out fixes that have been brought up through testing. There's still tons to do, and there's still tons of improvements that are in the pipeline, not just in App Center, but in all these other apps and stuff. We just pushed an update out to Photos where we not really redesigned, but re-architected, I guess, the main Photos view from some old hard-coded Cairo code that it was using to now it's all modern GTK CSS, really sexy. So there's a lot of stuff like that we can still do to make code bases faster and slimmer and more responsive, and there's more features that we can pack in and stuff without upgrading our library base.
Fair enough. You know, you look at it like there are certain distros that hard code their release schedule to dates or to releases of desktops or something along those lines. You know what I mean? And so you expect a new big release, and it becomes like a moment of marketing bliss for them, where they get to say new version of this version, no distros coming out. So you guys are kind of shuffling off that sort of style, but you're also not a pure rolling release in the sense that there's just an operating system and whatever you're at, whatever bits you get now is what you get now. You're kind of like in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see, how long ago did Loki come out, the last release?
I think that was September.
Okay.
I think.
So I guess that's true. It hasn't even been a year at this point. Is there a point at which you feel like you just have to do another release if for no other reason than marketing purposes? or are you really sticking to, you know, only when it's needed from an underlying core library standpoint?
I mean, we've been trying to track the Ubuntu LTS releases.
Okay.
And so the next LTS isn't for, you know, I think for another year after this, right? Till 1804.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of time until the next Ubuntu LTS release. One thing that we've done in the past is we have backported packages. So there's always a possibility that we'll decide to do a release and we'll backport like the latest GTK stack or, you know, some version of it to the current base, and then we'll do a release based on that. We're getting a lot more control over our repositories and stuff now with the things we've been publishing through App Center and stuff. So I think that we might begin to start thinking about and changing the way we do our release scheduling. But for now, I think we're fine on this base. At the very, very latest, there's another LTS around the corner.
So probably another release around the LTS version is probably kind of a safe bet.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe.
what we did for the last cycle is we did point releases every couple months, and so we'll probably continue to doing the same thing where we'll do a point release and it includes all last updates and things like that. So
straightforward, nice. Yeah. Hey, all right. Elementary aside, let's put it off the side for a second. All right, we're gonna wrap this up with a couple of things. How old are you?
How old am I?
Yeah, how
27.
old? You're 27 years old.
Yeah.
Wow, 27. Do you remember a show called The Computer Chronicles?
I don't.
You don't? That's
what
crazy. It was in the 80s and early 90s. How old were you? Let's see, 27. What year were you born? What was that?
89.
Oh, so you were like born in the middle of the show's run. All right, well, never mind. So the guy that did that show, it's kind of an iconic show. You know how there's tons of podcasts and video shows nowadays where there's like two guys and they interview people about computer stuff, and it's got a video. Like, basically this show, this never existed before The Computer Chronicles. The Computer Chronicles was like the first thing like that, really. And the guy who created that show is coming on later in the week. And I was going to ask you if you had any questions for him and wanted to ask him anything, but you're too young to remember he existed. So I'm going to skip that over and say straight up, is there any questions you would like me to ask Richard Stallman on your behalf? He's coming on the show in 2 weeks, and I want to be prepared. I've got a whole giant list of things I want to ask him. But are there any things that you personally have always wondered about Richard Stallman that I could ask him when I'll have him right here on the show with the camera pointed right at his face? What would you like to ask him? And it can be anything. Crazy, silly, ridiculous, important, profound, whatever.
As soon as you said that, I thought, are his tacos open source? That's what I want to know.
You want to know if he has open source food?
I want to know if he has open source food.
Open source
or
food.
If he thought about it. If that's something, because that's something I think about actually is open source food. But what does he think about that?
You know, you immediately went to tacos, which I got to point out, man.
I love tacos.
Racist.
I had tacos today.
Did you really?
Yeah, hell yeah,
I love tacos. I should have some tacos for dinner. I don't know why I haven't had tacos in weeks, and I don't know why. I feel like it's a failing on my part as a human being that I haven't had tacos lately.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta get some tacos, man.
Sometimes you just gotta get some tacos. Hey, Daniel. Thanks. Thanks for coming on to talk about tacos with me.
Thanks for having me on, dude. I love tacos. Can't talk to you.
You're welcome.